Is Rafael Devers solidified as the designated hitter for the Boston Red Sox? It sure seems like it after some recent roster decisions that the Red Sox made.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate, and also currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed, and it's all completely free. So continue to tune in because Locked On is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Happy Tuesday and happy 48 hours until opening day. I can't believe it. It honestly doesn't really feel like the season is starting, but I know that once the Red Sox start playing games and we're really in that grind of baseball season again, then I will know that it's the season. And I just can't wait to see this version of the Boston Red Sox going into 2025. They just feel like there are a lot of good vibes there, and it really feels like they finally have, for the first time in a while, a competitive roster that can genuinely compete for a division title, and not only that, but hopefully even a World Series title. And the Red Sox are looking to finalize that competitive roster over the next day or two. So on today's show, I'm going to be giving you a breakdown of some of the recent roster decisions that the Red Sox made and how it impacts the rest of the team in terms of where they're going to be playing and what still remains in terms of questions on the Red Sox roster. So obviously one of the biggest themes surrounding this offseason for the Boston Red Sox has been third base. Who's playing third base? Is it going to be Rafael Devers because that's the position he's played since joining the Red Sox in 2014? Or is it going to be Alex Bregman, who has been a phenomenal defensive third baseman throughout the course of his career, reigning Gold Glover at that position? What does it make more sense for the Red Sox to do? And the problem with it was that it wasn't really a decision that came down to just third base. It also came down to the decision of second base because the Red Sox had Bregman, who could have switched positions to second. And I think initially when the Red Sox brought in Bregman, they thought there was a chance he was going to end up playing second base. Now, I don't know that they expected him to choose Boston, because then it put them in this position of having to make this type of decision. But they said, okay, we'll let spring training play out. We'll see what happens, see who stands out, see who has the potential of making the roster. So therefore, because of the fact that you have this second and third base battle, they were specifically paying attention to a lot of their infielders and seeing who has the potential to make it. Now, the Red Sox did announce the other day that prospect Kristian Campbell has made it onto the Red Sox opening day roster. Now, that might be a surprise to some, and it was a little bit to me also, because he did have a tough spring offensively, just was not really seeing pitches well and wasn't hitting the ball super well. So I thought that because of that, they were going to decide that he needed more time in AAA, because they wanted to see him get more comfortable offensively before they call him up to the majors. But he just has such versatility and athleticism that he brings to the table that he will benefit the Red Sox, because he did show off some of that defense during the spring, and he's made some really nice plays on that side of the ball. So I think the Red Sox really value that, and they really like that, because infield defense is something that has been a problem for this team over the last few seasons. So bringing in Campbell, who showed that he can be a really good defender, is good for the Red Sox, because it shows that they have a kid who is hopefully going to make their defense better. So then if you think about what that leads to, now then there's other roster decisions that do need to be made when it comes to that. And by having Kristian Campbell up in the majors, it is going to be interesting to see how he adapts offensively. He really impressed on the offensive side of the ball in AAA. And then obviously, since he struggled in the spring, I do worry about that a little bit and him not having the ability to hit well at the major league level. But it does benefit the Red Sox for him to be in the majors to start the season, because basically there's this thing around Major League Baseball called the prospect promotion incentive. So what it is, it's something that was introduced to the league before the start of the 2022 season. And the PPI rewards clubs that roster top prospects for virtually an entire campaign. So basically, if a top prospect logs 172 days or more of service time in a single season and wins Rookie of the Year or finishes inside the top 3 of MVP or Cy Young voting, his respective team will receive an additional draft pick. So this could really benefit the Red Sox. If he wins AL Rookie of the Year this season, the Red Sox would receive a draft pick after the first round of the 2026 MLB draft. If he doesn't claim that title this season, the Red Sox could still receive an additional draft pick if he finishes inside the top 3 of AL MVP voting in either 2027 or 2028. So there are opportunities there for them to get that extra draft pick. Now, to be eligible for this program, a prospect must be featured in 2 of the 3 most prominent preseason top 100 rankings: Baseball America, ESPN, and MLB.com. So they have to be featured in at least 2 of those. Campbell would become ineligible for the incentive if he and the Red Sox agreed to a long-term contract extension imminently, which is an unlikely scenario because they definitely want to see how he plays. But I think because the Red Sox knew that this was a factor, they really felt like going into the offseason that they wanted to give Campbell the genuine opportunity to fight for that starting second base spot. And sure enough, they decided, now here we are at the end of camp, that he is going to be on that major league roster. So if you think about where the Red Sox are at now, and you think about the fact that, okay, now they have Kristian Campbell coming up to play second base, what does that mean for Rafael Devers? Because now it's pretty much confirmed that because Kristian Campbell is going to be on the opening day roster and he will play second base, that signifies Alex Bregman moving to third base and Rafael Devers moving to designated hitter. And Sam Kennedy spoke the other day and said that he wasn't surprised by Rafi's initial reaction to finding out that there was a possibility that he could move to DH, and he understood the frustration, but he did say that at the end of the day, Devers wants what everybody else wants, which is to win baseball games. So eventually he said, hey, I want to just do what's best for the team, and whatever the Boston Red Sox need me to do, I'll do. So hopefully he is okay with it. There were some rumors going around about him requesting a trade. That was overblown. Definitely was not at that point to where he said, I just don't want to be here anymore. So that'll be an interesting thing for us to adapt to, is not seeing Devers play third base defensively because they have Bregman playing there. Now, this could change. Like if somebody gets injured, for example, and they shift guys around, then of course they would put Devers back at third, because if Campbell is either struggling a lot or he gets hurt early on in the season, then they would shift Bregman to second base and then Devers would get those reps at third. So it'll be an interesting situation for Devers and for us to see him primarily just focusing on his bat and growing in his offensive game. And that also leads to another roster question, which is about Masataka Yoshida and where he's going to play, because the Red Sox don't love the idea of throwing him in the outfield because he was a liability defensively when he was playing out there a lot. So I think the Red Sox are hesitant about putting him back in the outfield. And their outfield situation right now is good because they have Jarren Duran, Cedam Rafaela, who they said they plan on playing a lot in center field. And then they have Wilyer Abreu, who they definitely were trying to make sure was even going to be ready for opening day. But now that he is part of this and that he's a factor in this whole situation, Yoshida is going to lose playing time. He's going to lose reps, and they are going to let Devers rest some days. He's not going to be playing every single game because they need to make sure that health-wise he's good to go. So it's not like he's going to be a guy who the Red Sox can throw out there for 162 games and expect him to play. So Yoshida is going to fill in that role as well at DH when Devers is in a slump maybe, or just needs some time to rest, or even in a pinch hitting situation. If they trust Yoshida to come in, depending on who the pitcher is and what the matchup is, we might see him there, but expect less reps from Yoshida in general. He's just going to lose some playing time. But to me, if Kristian Campbell earned it and the Red Sox feel like he earned that spot, then we have to hope that he comes up and he is an absolute star, because we have been waiting for this big three to come up to the major league team and make an impact. And now Campbell has the opportunity to set the tone for that group of prospects and be the first one who the Red Sox are putting on the major league roster and getting a chance to play. Now there's Roman Anthony, who the Red Sox feel very high on, who is the top prospect in all of baseball. So they could have him come up to the major league roster as well. But the problem is there's not really a spot for him at this current moment. And I think they were holding out to see what was going to happen with Abreu and if he was going to be ready for opening day before making a decision on Roman Anthony. But they are going to have to think about trading Abreu when Roman Anthony is ready to come up. So that's a conversation for another day, because they are going to have to approach that situation head on. So he is likely to be in AAA for a bit. Marcelo Meyer, they decided, is going to start the season in AAA. That also makes sense because he didn't get any reps in AAA last year because he was injured. And even though he was absolutely mashing the ball during spring training this year, the Red Sox must have just felt like it was too big of a risk to take to not have him play any games in AAA. So that's the deal with the big three. Kristian Campbell being on the roster solidifies that the Red Sox are looking at Rafael Devers as a designated hitter. And I'm excited to see how this all plays out, because defensively, the Red Sox infield should be a lot better than it was last season. And that's going to help them win some more games, because they lost quite a few impactful games because of that infield defense last year. So definitely interested in seeing the difference from last year to this year in terms of the Red Sox infield defense. And I'm hoping that this can help elevate Devers' game even more so that he can just be a rock star at DH. Coming up, though, the Boston Red Sox starting rotation seems to be set after some more roster decisions that they have made. So I'm going to be talking about that next. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. I love that Just Ingredients prioritizes wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. Whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Baseball season is here. We have opening day in 2 days. How exciting is that? I cannot wait. Please comment in the comments if you're on YouTube and let me know what your favorite Red Sox opening day was in your lifetime that you've watched. Just so much buzz surrounding opening day, and I cannot wait to be all decked out in Red Sox gear for that. So, while the Red Sox work to finalize their roster and make decisions on who's going to play where, they definitely are very excited about Kristian Campbell and his ability to be in those Rookie of the Year conversations in 2025. It really speaks volumes to them calling him up to the majors and feeling confident that he could be ready. And it does mean Rafael Devers has basically been solidified as the full-time designated hitter. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But there have been other roster decisions that the Red Sox have seemingly made, and that includes the starting rotation, because the starting rotation posed some uncertainty going into this year because you had the 3 guys at the top in Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, and Walker Buehler, all of whom will be there and will make those first 3 starts of the season. But then the question became those 4th and 5th starters, because you have other players who are starting the season on the injured list in Lucas Giolito, Brian Bayo, and Cutter Crawford. So that left 2 open spots for a starting pitcher. And Alex Cora confirmed that Richard Fitz had landed the 4th starter role. So he will be pitching after Walker Buehler in the rotation, at least until some of these guys start to get healthy. And they are not really expected to be out for very long. At least Brian Bayo especially is not supposed to be out for very long. So once those guys start coming back, they'll get their spots back, and then Fitz would probably go back down to AAA at that point. But he earned that 4th starting job, as he should, because he definitely showed some really good stuff despite a small sample size in his time up in the majors last year. He made a few starts and generally looked really good. So the Red Sox are excited to see more of that from him. And in the spring, he definitely looked good enough to the point where the Red Sox felt confident doing that. So he earned the 4th spot in the rotation. So then the question became, okay, who's going to be their 5th starter in the interim, at least until some of their regular starters come back? And there were a few guys fighting for that spot. Sean Newcomb, who had a great spring, Quinn Priester, and also Cooper Criswell. All guys who the Red Sox were familiar with. Cooper Criswell especially the most, just because he pitched in the rotation last year. So the Red Sox have a sense of the type of starter that he would be. Then there's Sean Newcomb and Quinn Priester. Priester struggled this spring and Sean Newcomb did not. And that appeared to be a difference in the decision that the Red Sox made, is because Priester was just struggling significantly more than Newcomb was. Although Priester did not pitch poorly this spring training, they just gave Newcomb the edge because he did look better than Priester did. So the Red Sox are definitely confident in the decision that they made to include Priester on the list of players that was going to go back to AAA. And obviously with Priester, he just needs some more work. I mean, the Red Sox traded for him for a reason. They're excited for him to eventually contribute. It's just now a matter of him getting more reps in AAA to hopefully get himself back to the point where he is ready to contribute a little bit more at the major league level. So because of the fact that the Red Sox had to start making decisions on their roster. I think they just looked at Priester and Newcomb together head to head in the spring that they had, and they said, okay, so we feel confident that Newcomb can give us innings, and Newcomb is a guy who consistently looked really good throughout the spring, and he earned it. So based on where we are at right now, we feel more confident in rolling Newcomb out there than we do Priester. And not to say that you can't have Criswell in there still, just because they sent Priester to AAA and he didn't make the opening day roster at the major league level doesn't necessarily mean that it's locked in to be Newcomb as that fifth starter, because they could have Cooper Criswell in there and just not have Newcomb pitch. But I think they want to find a way to have Newcomb pitch because of how impressive of a spring he truly had. So when it comes to the situation with Cooper Criswell, I think he will likely be a bullpen piece. It just kind of depends on what the Red Sox are feeling there. So I'm excited to see the potential of this rotation early on in the season. I mean, again, this is a temporary thing because the Red Sox do have their starters coming back, like Giolito, Bayo, and Crawford are going to be in their rotation when they all get healthy again. So it won't be a longer term solution. It was just a matter of who are the guys that we can trust to be in this rotation to help hold things down until our main guys come back. And ultimately, statistically speaking, it's hard to deny that Newcomb wouldn't be able to be that contributor because he posted an 0.63 ERA with 13 strikeouts across 5 appearances, 4 of those being starts during the spring, against Priester's 4.82 ERA and 9 Ks across 4 starts. Newcomb signed a minors deal with the Red Sox on January 14th and absolutely made the most of his opportunity. He was aided by an absolute rash of injuries that opened the door for both him and Fitz. So it's just exciting to think about if he does carry over some of those numbers that he did from the spring into the season, that we could get a guy who's really dangerous in the Red Sox rotation. And if he's the 5th starter, I mean, come on. Like, if you're thinking about the rotation and the other guys in it, this rotation with the non-injured players could end up being just as good as their regular rotation when the guys come back from injury. It's crazy, but it goes to show that the Red Sox have depth. So again, Alex Cora hasn't definitively said who the 5th starter is going to be, but Priester going to AAA to start the season is significant because it does narrow down those options of who's going to start in that 5th spot until the guys come back. But it's been fun to kind of see who's been playing well and who hasn't, because ultimately when it comes to the Red Sox, they need to make decisions that are best for the team. And sometimes that involves taking chances on players like they're doing with Campbell. They've seen enough evidence from him in the minors to feel like he could perform well at the major league level, but that's not guaranteed, especially since he did struggle offensively at the plate during the spring. So because of the fact that they're taking that gamble with him by saying, okay, he just had a bad spring, but he'll be ready to go come opening day on the major league roster, they also are willing to do that with some of these other players. And they didn't want to take too much of a risk by having Priester start the season in the majors because the pitching specifically was a problem last year. And I think they can afford a little bit more to not have Campbell be hitting as well. If he's struggling a little bit at the plate, they have a lot of offensive depth right now. Whereas if they had Priester in that number 5 spot in the rotation and he started to significantly struggle, then the problem for the Red Sox would be, all right, well, we shouldn't have picked him. Now we have to have somebody else take over that spot. And then it throws off their routine because they're getting interrupted from moving to AAA up to the majors. So I do think the Red Sox ultimately made the right decision by having him start the season in AAA. I'm sure eventually he could get his opportunity because, as we all know, with injuries, nothing's really guaranteed that a player is not going to miss any time. So if somebody's missing time, I'm sure he'd be somebody that they would consider calling up. But if you're looking at a starting rotation that consists of Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Richard Fitz, and Sean Newcomb, That's a solid 5 right there. And you can win baseball games with that group. And then when Bayo comes back, maybe you send Fitz, or when Cutter Crawford comes back, maybe you send Newcomb down or move him to the pen, or you even move Cutter Crawford to the pen and just go with a 5-man rotation and not have either of them in it. Or you keep Newcomb in the rotation because he's impressing, and then you figure out what to do with Cutter Crawford at a later date. So these guys here that are going to start the season in the rotation really have a chance to carve out their identity as a player, because if Fitz wants a more permanent spot in the rotation, he's going to have to pitch lights out, and he's going to have to throw better than some of these other more established guys in the rotation. Because if he does that and he makes the decision difficult, the Red Sox could say, oh, well, we actually really like him, so maybe we'll keep him around in the rotation because he's pitching really well, and then we'll just have Cutter Crawford throw in the pen instead. So lots of possibilities of what could happen with that. And speaking of the bullpen, that's still an unknown here surrounding the Red Sox. What is the bullpen going to look like come opening day? That's coming up next. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. I think we're going to see a very exciting ending to this March Madness tournament, and you absolutely will not want to miss out on the action. And if you're going to be watching all these games anyway, why not try to make money off of it? So definitely take full advantage of FanDuel and download the app today and start placing bets, because who knows, you could be very surprised by how much money you're winning. Trust me, I've experienced people have that happen to them before. So download FanDuel, start betting on everything March Madness related, or even other sports too, and you could be rich by next week. Who knows? I hope you are. So excited about opening day, only a couple days away now. And Alex Cora did mention that during this stretch while they're in Mexico is when they expect to finalize a lot of roster decisions, and they should have a good idea of who's going to be playing where, so that obviously come opening day in a few days, they can be fully prepared with the roster that they have. And one area that still has question marks is the bullpen. What is the bullpen going to look like? Now, Alex Cora hasn't specifically named a closer, and I don't think the Red Sox actually will name a closer. It'll just be a matter of the first time that the Red Sox have a close game in the 9th inning where they're leading by a run or two. Who does he go to throw in that inning? A lot of the signs right now are pointing to that person being Aroldis Chapman, but things could still change. But he might indirectly send a message that he is the closer if they're in that 9th inning scenario where they need somebody to come in and save the game for the Red Sox in the 9th when they're up by a run or two. If Chapman is the go-to that first time, then I would be inclined to think that they kind of see Chapman as the main closer. But they do have other bullpen-related decisions that they need to make. So Adam Ottavino was released. So he essentially triggered an opt-out clause in the minor league deal that he signed with the Red Sox in February. So that basically means that he had a choice on what he wanted to do, since he signed a non-roster deal early in camp. After he was informed on Saturday that he wasn't going to make the opening day roster, he then had a 48-hour window to decide his next steps. And Ottavino chose to opt out and hit the free agent market, likely in search of a major league deal with a team. It's a little unclear if he'll consider a return to the Red Sox in a AAA role. We don't know how much he's really considering that. He turned down one major league roster over the winter due to geography, and instead chose a non-roster deal with the Red Sox, with whom he pitched in 2021. So it's hard to say if he would decide to stay with the Red Sox in that capacity, but he did struggle relatively this spring. He had an ERA of 10.80, but that was completely inflated by one big blow-up outing when he gave up 6 earned runs while recording just one single out on March 11th. But he has otherwise pitched well, including on Friday when he struck out 2 in a scoreless frame against the Pirates. But the Red Sox have to make tough decisions as they're looking to finalize their roster, and they must have just not had enough faith in him being able to be consistent this upcoming season. Then there's another pitcher in Matt Moore, a lefty, who had a similar opt-out in his contract to Adam Ottavino, but he decided to remain with the team. He'll start the year at AAA Worcester because he was also told that he wasn't going to make the opening day roster. So he has a chance to eventually get called back up and pitch for the Boston Red Sox, but that is where he is going to be to start the season. He joined the Red Sox after a down year in Anaheim that was cut short by flexor tightness in his throwing arm, and he pitched just 3 innings in games, holding opponents scoreless while striking out 2. The body of work limited by his late arrival to camp and a stint with the stomach virus that has ripped through Red Sox camp was just not enough for the Red Sox to feel comfortable putting him on the roster. He did say that he knows signing a non-roster deal is part of it, and he knew there was a chance that he'd either get here and not perform well or things just wouldn't work out. But it's a long season, and his plan is to go and get a body of work going and try to get into a groove and get back to a better form than he is currently in so that he can eventually get called back up to the majors. So they will not be on the roster. But the question is, who is going to be in the bullpen? Because the Red Sox still have question marks surrounding there because there are 9 pitchers that are locks right now in Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Walker Buehler, Richard Fitz, plus Aroldis Chapman, Liam Hendricks, Justin Slayton, Garrett Whitlock, and Justin Wilson. So those 5 guys at the end there that I just listed, Chapman, Hendricks, Slayton, Whitlock, and Wilson, are all locks for the bullpen. That has been said by the Red Sox already. So that leaves a few more spots open for the bullpen. 9 pitchers are guaranteed spots. One of those spots that's still vacant is for the rotation and finalizing for sure who that 5th starter is going to be, likely Sean Newcomb. But because Crochet, Houck, Buehler, and Fitz will comprise 4 of those 5 spots, and Cora said Chapman is kind of a guy who they've really been pleased with over the spring, so we can kind of infer that he's going to be the closer. Hendricks, Slayton, Whitlock, and Wilson. So then you're looking at a situation where you have 3 more bullpen spots available, plus, like I talked about with that last rotation spot. So the Red Sox technically still have 22 healthy pitchers in camp, plus rehabbing starter Patrick Sandoval, who is on the 60-day IL. In reality, though, that number is much lower because when you add in Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, Lucas Giolito, Chris Murphy, and Zach Penrod all being on the injured list to start the season, then you have 3 other guys in Michael Fulmer, Brian Mata, and Matt Moore, who all have been told they're headed to AAA Worcester to start the season. Then you're looking at the Red Sox really only having 5 pitchers vying for 4 spots in that 26-man group. So when it comes to that bullpen spot, you have Cooper Criswell, who kind of could be either or, could throw in the rotation or could pitch out of the pen. And then you have Brennan Bernardino, Zach Kelly, and Greg Weiser, all of whom are fighting for spots too and have not been giving spots on the roster yet. The likelihood of Sean Newcomb being the 5th starter is pretty high, but I bring up Criswell again because if he shows the team enough before that turn would come to pitch on that 5th day in Baltimore, which is their 2nd series of the season, then maybe they change their mind and have him make that 5th start instead of Sean Newcomb. But the chances are right now that it would be Newcomb. And when it comes to the bullpen, it's going to end up being where the Red Sox feel they need the most help, because they could go with carrying a long reliever in Cooper Criswell in the pen and having him be a guy who can eat some innings for them. Or they could add a third lefty in Brennan Bernardino behind Chapman and Wilson to ensure that they still have that versatility on the major league roster. Now, if you remember, Brennan Bernardino spent a lot of the season in AAA last year and got called up due to injuries and such, and he struggled last year at the major league level. So the Red Sox might be hesitant about giving him a roster spot at this point. So if they decide they want Cooper Criswell in the bullpen as a long reliever, then that definitely solidifies that Newcomb would be that number 5 starter. But I think they're still trying to figure out what they want to do with Criswell, which is holding up the other decisions that they make. But those are the players who, as of right now, are trying to get those spots. And obviously things could change last minute. Like last year, things seemed pretty set before the Red Sox ended up grabbing Chase Anderson after the Pirates cut him, and they took him on their roster as a long man. So obviously nothing's guaranteed, but because the Red Sox have decisions to make still, we'll find out in the next day or so who's going to occupy those last spots. But as long as they're putting themselves in a position to succeed, I'm really excited about it. And I hope you are too, because we are so close to just partying every day on this show because it's Red Sox baseball. Thank you for tuning into the show, though. I do appreciate you making it your first listen of every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with host Dominic Martino and Matthew One. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It will benefit you so much. I promise you, it'll help you win your fantasy leagues and get those bragging rights among your friends. So check that out next. As always, keep the faith. Go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.